Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things, ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and joining me today is Michael Ceely, who is a licensed psychotherapist and owner of Ceely Counseling, at one point in Berkeley, California. He is now in Florida and safe with Men's Counseling Florida, and he also has Wisconsin services at Madison Online Therapy. Michael's passionate about men's mental health. He's the founder of Men's Therapy Directory, a website dedicated to helping men access counseling resources. Michael's also a former competitive cyclist. During his career, he won 2 state titles and twice went to the Olympic trials. He currently works with athletes through his elite mindset coaching program. Such great stuff. Thank you for being here and glad you are safe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
We were talking a little bit just about the differences. There are stigmas in mental health everywhere, but it does seem that there are different stigmas and barriers for men. So thank you for what you do. And what would you say to those resistant?
I would say the best experience I ever had in my sports career was seeing a therapist. And I would say to men out there who are resistant to therapy, think of therapy as like a coach that can help you with a specific problem. Don't look at it as there's something wrong with me, or I'm defective, or I'm weak, or anything like that. Look at it like if you were on a sports team and you were having problems with your free throws. We could take like Shaquille O'Neal, for example, notorious for missing free throws, like hilariously bad at it. And he was resistant, and he went and saw a mental performance coach because that is a mental issue. It was a block. And he actually got pretty decent at free throws. And I would say if you're resistant to therapy, take Shaquille O'Neal's example. He's a pretty manly man. So if he can use some mental performance coaching, think about therapy as like mental coaching, help you through a specific problem, is a sign of strength to seek out help, not a sign of weakness, because you are going to deliver more for other people if you can handle some of the things that are going on. And by the way, you're human. We're all human, and we're all susceptible to anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. So I would say get some help if you need it, and all the cool people are doing it. So there you go.
You said you saw someone for when you were an athlete for an injury. I have had a lot of clients because it can be a loss of the life you've always known, especially if you can't return. It's still not widely discussed though. Yeah,
I would say a couple times actually I saw a therapist during my athletic career. First time was when I was 15 years old, when I was just getting started in bicycle racing, and my parents were getting divorced. So I was kind of being a rebellious teen, I would say. I'll confess to that. And so I kind of got sent there to be, fixed, right? I was like, hey, go to therapy. I was very resistant to that, but the therapist was really helpful. And the sort of the fringe benefit was it improved my athletic performance, which was great. Another time I saw a psychotherapist was many years later, probably in my 40s. I was mountain biking, and I had a bad fall and broke my leg, pretty severe. Had to be carried out of the woods, all dramatic and everything. I'm okay now, but at the time I was depressed, I'll be honest with you. And to be completely out of commission like that, and realizing that we are all human and prone to injury and all these things. So I went and saw someone, and it was very helpful to reduce, I think with athletes, especially with injury, there can be a lot of self-blame. And frankly, for men as well, and for women too, like, I shouldn't be weak, or there's something else, I could have done something better. And the fact is that if you have an injury in sports, there's not a lot sometimes that you could have done about it, but there's this tendency for athletes to have this control and agency. And when they lose that and things don't quite add up, like they'll replay in their mind, what could I have done better? And the fact is, a lot of times with injuries, there's nothing you could have done. And so the therapy for me really helped, accepting that, you know what, I didn't do anything wrong. And letting go of that was really helpful in moving forward, letting go of that feeling of blame and getting back into the game mentally and physically.
I'm really stuck on this. I hear so many stories about athletes after the fact being depressed when they couldn't play or compete. How can we make it more talked about during? So people, I mean, I am a huge sports fan, Cowboys fan. So the first game of the year against Tampa, ironically, Dak Prescott was talking before the game about how nervous he was about re-injuring his injury from last year. That who knows what he does, but he had got a different injury. And so I appreciated that he was at least acknowledging it's a little bit scary to get back out there because I know what it was like to not be able to play. Why is it, how can we get more people talking about it during when it's happening so other people know, oh my God, I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I think it really comes from leadership of the team, of making a culture that it's okay to have these fears about getting back in the game and just normalizing that. And it really, I think it takes the example of a coach or a star player on the team to set that tone for everybody, to make it okay for to speak about it. Like, hey, I'm feeling really nervous for this game, and here's why. And again, it's a team effort, so that you, in revealing this fact that you're afraid, you might have all kinds of feedback from your teammates and coaches that you weren't even expecting, and you might find the solution right there, as opposed to keeping it to yourself, like, oh, I'm ashamed of this. People are going to judge me. Because often for the athlete, it's like, how am I going to be judged? Are people going to judge me? But I always use this thing with the athletes I work with, is I call it flipping it. So what it is if you think about, if someone else were in your shoes, if one of your teammates was injured in the past and they were coming back into a game, they're feeling nervous, and they confided in you and said, hey, I'm feeling kind of nervous. Would you say, hey, you're weak, I don't want to hear it, you suck? It's like, of course not, right? Of course not. So I tell athletes to like flip the script and say, how would you respond if someone was vulnerable to you, came to you and said, hey, I'm afraid, or I actually am kind of injured, I don't think I should play tonight, right? As a good teammate, you would want to support them as much as possible. So for anyone listening right now, be an athlete or anybody, flip that script. Like, if you had a best friend who said, hey, Samantha, I'm feeling kind of depressed, I'm kind of out of sorts, would you say, hey, just get over it, like, I don't want to hear about it, I'm kind of busy? Like, probably wouldn't do that, right? So yeah, so for everyone listening, like, people want to support you, people want to help you. Confide in people, let them lift you up. It's okay.
And let's take that right out of the sporting arena. We can apply the same philosophies in life. It is a team approach. We do need a person with a leadership role, kind of setting the tone and being there to see the things that the people immersed in it don't see. So if you're listening and you're struggling, or you have a family member or friend struggling, this can still apply for you. And going through it alone, silently, or just trying to figure it all out by yourself, intensifies it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's isolating yourself. You get more and more in your own head. You start inventing all of these scripts in your head, start making your fears real. So you got to get out of your head. You got to verbalize it. You got to talk about it. And like you said, it is a team effort, really. So like in a family, for example, you could have a teenager who's really quiet and withdrawn. And your responsibility as a parent is to notice changes in behavior. So if you see the grades dropping, if you see some withdrawn stuff, or hanging out with different friends, or if you notice your spouse is changing behavior too, either like tons of extra energy or feeling depressed and not doing the stuff that they like, reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Broach the topic, even if they don't want to come to you, go to them, show that leadership and say like, hey, we notice each other, we ask questions, and it's okay to talk, no judgment, you can talk to me. So really as a leader, setting that tone. And if you're like an older brother, like if you have a younger sister or something, like it's your, I'll say responsibility. I like that word. I think it's appropriate. You're in a leadership role. Like if you're an elder, if you're older than someone, reach out and say, hey, it's okay, you can talk to me.
By doing that so much, you open the door for so much. You allow people to be there for you and also know that they can reach out when they need it. The other thing is that I consider myself pretty self-aware. I've had anxiety my entire life, and I know my signs and symptoms, but not always. My family knows me really well, and they can see things I might not see. So having that communication is important, because I want to know as early as possible if I'm not okay, so that I can go to my toolbox and implement anything so it doesn't get as bad as it has in the past. And those who know us best really can see things we might not see for another week, month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly self-awareness helps, because you can notice yourself like, hey, I'm not doing my usual stuff that I love doing. What's wrong? Something's up with me, right? But sometimes, even if you have plenty of self-awareness, you could be in a rut and be in denial. We humans love being in denial, right? It's easy. Everything's fine. I'll just, a little off my game. I'll just keep pushing. So our friends and family can notice when you are off your game and reach out. And again, just normalizing checking in with people. Just make that a normal thing. And then people will have permission to talk with you, and they might even reach back out to you. So just opening up those pipelines is such a good thing.
And for me, I never felt so debilitatingly depressed, or it was never crushing. But I would say to my loved one, like, I'm in a funk, something feels off. That's enough. That starts the conversation. You don't have to have the exact words or be at what you think you need to be, the lowest, to let others in and be there to kind of clear the fog. When I'm off, I don't have the ideas or the perception that I would on a different day. And so letting them know is also data for them to use to help me.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think about the continuum of mental health, and that you don't have to have a diagnosis to go seek help or to feel that you need support. On any given day, I'll be honest with you, like I'll have days where I'm probably diagnosable with some sort of mental disorder, right? And I laugh because it's like, hey, we're human, right? We're human. We have these emotions. It's biochemistry, it's amount of sleep you've had, amount of cortisol in your bloodstream, like all of these things. And to be as consistent as we are is pretty amazing, given how mercurial our body systems are. So I like to think about like a continuum, in that and any given day, a human's going to have something that might be diagnosable, may not meet all the criteria for a quote unquote disorder, but like, yeah, there's anxiety, there's depression. These are just normal things. And I like to think about them as symptoms, right? So am I experiencing symptoms of anxiety or symptoms of depression today? Okay, today, all right, 3 days, 4 days, all right, I might be in a funk, right? There's something I need to right the ship here. So thinking about mental health on a continuum, not that you have to quote unquote have depression or have anxiety, but you can have symptoms. And you have symptoms, and if symptoms start to pile up, then that's going to get in the way of things, and you get in a rut that way.
Exactly the same as if you have a sore throat, your ears start to hurt, right? Why we do focus on physical symptoms. It is Mental Illness Awareness Week. I think it's so important that we have those check-ins with ourselves and others. If I'm not sleeping well, that is my first, something is not okay. whether that's physical or emotional. But that's like a really big clue for me. And not everyone knows these things because we're staying silent. So tell me about the directory and how men can access it, and what it is. Does it have categories in case I'm looking for somebody for anger?
Yeah, so this is the menstherapydirectory.com. It's in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I developed this a couple of years ago because a good friend of mine was trying to find a therapist. And he found the process really frustrating, really discouraging. And frankly, I've heard this from a number of people. There are these nationwide online directories like Psychology Today, Good Therapy is another one. There's BetterHelp. A lot of these are, and nothing really against them, but they're so big that sometimes it's hard to navigate. It's hard to find someone who's, specializes in anger or specializes in OCD or whatever it is. So I decided to create more kind of like a boutique website and just serving the San Francisco Bay Area and make it just for men. So that, and it was actually men seeking a male therapist, that specific. And so I know all the therapists on the site, not really personally, but like we've had phone conversations or met for coffee or something. So I've vetted them. And the goal is to get kind of every category covered. So whatever you want to talk about, it's there. It's a diverse group of men as well. So it's like, I'm hoping it resonates with people. And the idea there is to make it easy to navigate, easy to find something, and less overwhelming. And I think some of these directories could do better with making it a little easier to navigate. And really the main message is just know that finding a good therapist is like finding a good match. I won't say it's like dating, but it's like it's kind of a similar thing in that it might take 3, 4, 5 people. I would say like phone calls, like call them, have a conversation with them. And if the vibe isn't feeling, right after the call, like listen to your gut. Like you're going to kind of know if you get on a phone call with a therapist, if it kind of starts to click. Right? Like, hey, this person, I think they get me. And like their website, they have, they talk about the things that I'm worried about. So I tell people like it's a process to find a therapist that's a good match for you. Don't just take the first person, because you're going to get more bang for your buck if you find someone that you click with. So that's really the message there, is just it is a process. It takes a while, but once you find a match, it's totally worth it.
It's so true. And I have people from all over reach out to me because the process is overwhelming and they need somebody who knows how to navigate it to help them find what they're looking for. So I love that. If you're in that San Francisco area, I could do the same thing in Michigan, and I'm very picky about who I'll refer to. My clients know if I give out a name or something, this is somebody I would go to myself. I trust.
Yeah.
But what if it's somebody in Montana? What steps should they take besides reaching out to one of us to help them find what they need?
Yeah, if you're in a rural area, that's that can be an issue. And fortunately with telehealth, with the internet, you can find a therapist within your state borders who's licensed to practice in your state. And there's a lot of therapists doing this. This is like very, very common now. So it wasn't like it was 10 years ago. You can be out on a ranch in Montana and see a therapist in Helena or something like that, just by going on the internet and searching. So searching in your entire state. So it gives you a lot of options there. So if you're not finding somebody locally, and it's really nice to meet in person, I get it for sure. But also like you can resonate with someone living in a different city, and you can do teletherapy and really, get a good connection that way too.
I don't know what your experience is. I was nervous. I started teletherapy before the pandemic because I moved and my clients in Michigan were struggling to find someone new. And I was nervous at first that there would be something different. And my clients love it. They love the accessibility. They love not having to deal with traffic. So I encourage that, because if you want a certain expertise, that matters more to me than where that person is. So I don't know if you've seen a difference in your in-person.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. What really matters is match. In person is nice. You have a nice comfy couch, you're able to, see body language, all of that. But really the most important thing is match. And if you can connect via video that way, that's fine. What I've noticed, I actually started online therapy probably back in 2018 and was kind of just playing around with it and really noticed that it's not much difference. There's not much difference. In an ideal world, what I like to do is do the first session in person with someone and kind of get that rapport going and then switch to online. A lot of people like that. So you can do kind of hybrid stuff. You can see your therapist, once a month in person and the rest of the time online, so that you can kind of play around with it. But I haven't really seen a lot of difference in effectiveness and connection between the in-person and online. I will say that I just do individual. I work exclusively with men one-on-one. I would say that maybe if you're doing couples therapy or say family therapy with 5 family members, maybe in person would be a little better. Although I don't know, I've never tried it, but it seems to me the more people you get on the video session, the more it's kind of wrangling and you're not reading, cues and things like that. But I wouldn't know because I haven't done more than one-on-one.
I haven't had 5 yet on, but I haven't had, people don't cancel or reschedule. There's just less people show up because there's no barrier to the appointment. So there's less disruption in what we're working on because there's more consistency and availability. So I agree. I think it should be however you're comfortable. And I tell people they're interviewing me or who, go out and whether it's 5 calls or finding that right match. And it's not fun, but it's worth it when you do find that connection. And I don't know about you, even clients I don't see still keep in touch and want to share their updates. And when you find that person, it's somebody on your team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's really, it's about the connection. And there's all these, they do study after study about comparing different types of modalities of therapy. And they say like what matters is if there's a connection between the therapist and the client. So you could do psychodynamic or you could do CBT, but in the end, it's about the connection. Like, does my therapist get me? Is there a good click there? That's really what matters. And again, if you'll know that when you find it, like you'll be talking to a therapist, say an initial phone call, and you go, all right, this feels right. And I also tell people like ask lots of questions to your prospective therapist. Like ask tons of questions. You're paying them money, so like ask them, throw them a curveball and see how they respond to it. And
yeah, we work for you. I think that's what people. It needs to be like. It's not our agenda. It's not our life. It is emotional crutches. I also like to use that phrase. And again, we have a physical every year. We have to take our car in for a tune-up, and the emotional component is just as important with that right person. Do you do any groups, or is there a way people can connect with you if they're resonating with you now and they like what you say, but they're not in California?
Yeah, so my business is really divided in kind of 2 forks. One is exclusively dedicated to athletes where it's more mental coaching. I call it mindset coaching. And this is for athletes who are really ready to make progress. I might get a phone call from, say, an athlete, and they'll say, hey, I really want to make progress in my sport. And we'll, ask them some questions. And it turns out they're actually like kind of stuck in a little bit of a depression. Then I would say, hey, not really ready for this mental coaching. Let's talk about psychotherapy instead. So it's branched between psychotherapy and like mindset coaching. So and the thing about psychotherapy, as you know, is like it's state dependent, although that might be changing. Actually, I just got an email from the California board about kind of more regional stuff going on with interplay with licenses. But for now, it is state by state licensing. So if someone wants to work with me, you would have to live in California, Wisconsin, or Florida for the psychotherapy. Nationwide, if you are an athlete looking for sort of performance coaching. So
where can they find you just to learn about you? You have
Uh-huh.
articles, you've been on plenty of podcasts. So even if they can't work with you in that way, can they connect with you?
They absolutely can. Really, the best way to find my stuff is just Googling my name, which, fortunately, I have a last name which is not a common last name. So my first name is Michael, last name is Ceely, and it's spelled Ceely. And it's a pretty unique spelling. And if someone else has that spelling, I'm probably related to them. So, but that's really the best way to find my stuff. You'll see my coaching site for athletes. You'll see my Wisconsin, my Florida, California stuff will pop up. Podcast stuff will pop up, all on that first page probably of Google.
Anything else going on or that you'd like people to know about?
Oh, let's see. Well, actually, Instagram, you can find me on Instagram too, Michael_Ceely. That's where I'm probably the most active. So I put a lot of videos up there, especially for athletes. But anything else really I think, what we talked about today is just really important. And maybe the theme being like reaching out for help. If you're a man or if you're a human, doesn't matter. Like, it's a sign of strength. Like, just flipping that is actually a strong move, because it means you want to fix something, right? And you want so that's basically it. Like, that's, I would say, the theme. My big point today is seeking help as a sign of strength.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. I started teaching my nieces really early how to raise their hand, no matter what it was in school, because every teacher, every environment is different, and not all are receptive to mental health or the invisible, like, as I like to say. And so going back to the leadership role, I think this is like workplace. This is, if you have a company and you want to have healthy employees, bring someone in. People are struggling all over every day, and we don't necessarily know. So creating that environment and that culture where it is safe for an athlete to say, I'm struggling, and not fear repercussions, or an employee to not fear losing their job. Do you at all do that? Do you go into corporate in any way?
I haven't done that yet. I'm definitely open to the idea. And what's funny, you mentioned corporate. My impetus to get into psychotherapy and mental health as a profession started when I was working in the tech world in San Francisco. So I was working this high pressure tech job, like crazy hours, working to like 9 p.m. And people were a little unhappy. And so they brought in an organizational psychologist. And I saw kind of how that worked. And frankly, it was like a really bad experience. And so I was like, what did this person do wrong? I got really fascinated that way. I think there is definitely room for companies, no matter how big or small, to start really focusing on mental health, and not like, you have a mental health problem, but more of like mental health on a continuum. Again, how can you be the healthiest day by day? And because it really comes down to mindset. It's like, you can have plenty of talents at your job, and if you're kind of off your game, or if the culture is a little, burnout or bad, it's like you're not going to be performing. So as a leader of a business, no matter how big or small, think about that aspect. Bring in a professional. Personally, I'm not doing that yet, but I'm definitely open to that idea. I work with sports teams specifically, but not in corporate. But the same kind of stuff applies there. It's a team. And if you want to find someone for your corporation or company, thinking it can be a huge benefit for sure.
Yeah, that's the wave of the future, because even if the people in the meeting, say, aren't dealing with it, they have someone in their life who is, a friend or family. We all experience and encounter it. So there's so much that we can provide, so people at least know how to have the conversations. So again, you can reach out to either one of us, Michael_Ceely. That's your Instagram. We'll put that in the show notes. Any final thoughts for listeners?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm really glad to connect with you. I think just the more we have conversations like this, I think the better it is for everyone. It kind of spreads around, and people will kind of get really into it. And I think people will share this episode, because it's an important topic. So
I agree. I love what you're doing. We'll put the directory in the show notes as well in case you are in the San Francisco area. Thank you so much for your time and your openness, and to everyone listening. Until next time, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Grief Hab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.